everyone, annyeonghaseyo and welcome back. Today's video is going to be all about seasons. So we're going to talk about the 4 seasons in Korea. I'm going to go over what they are called in Korean, what they typically consist of, and then at the end I'm going to compare what those seasons are like as opposed to what it is like in my country, the United States. So to get started, we're going to go over what the seasons are called in Korean. And so first of all, the word season is kaijul, kaijul. And I apologize if my pronunciation is a little off. I am still learning. But that is the word for season in Korean. And then of course there are the 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. Spring, which typically runs between April and June in Korea, is 봄. And then summer typically runs from July into August, so it's not a very long summer. It is 여름. Moving into fall, fall is 가을. And that typically is September to November. And then finally there is winter, and winter runs typically from December to March, and the word for December is 겨울. Now that we know what those seasons are called in Korean and when they typically happen during the year, let's talk a little bit about what those seasons consist of as far as the climate, things that are happening, and just kind of an overall view of what to expect. So starting with spring or 봄. Spring is categorized by the moderate climate. This, even though it's a typically short season, it is a great time to visit Korea because of the climate, because of the weather. It's not going to be too hot, it's not going to be too cold, and then too, you can take advantage of the beautiful scenery. Korea is beautiful anyway, but if you're a fan of cherry blossoms or blooming plants, this would be a fantastic time to visit because you would be able to see that firsthand. There are also lots of festivals that take place in the springtime, so if you're planning a trip, this might be a good idea for you. So just check out some websites. There are plenty out there. I'm going to link some of the ones that I've gotten some of my information from, well, all of my information from, in the description, so that way you can check out what they have to say about the seasons and you can plan your trip accordingly. But in between spring and summer, there is what is called monsoon season. And monsoon season probably would not be a great time to visit just because of the amount of rain that happens during that. Now, if you don't mind rain, then sure, go for it. But if you're like me and don't really like getting wet, you might want to plan your trip accordingly because of that. And then monsoon season leads into summer. And summer, as we said, happens typically between July and August, which seems very short to me, which I'll talk more about later. But it is very hot during summer in Korea and very humid. I live in the southern United States, so I know a lot about humidity. It feels pretty much like a wet blanket being put on you as soon as you walk out the door. So in my opinion, I would not visit Korea during this time just because I don't like humidity. But if you have no other time to go, this might work for you. And if you don't care, this also might work for you. It's all about your personal preferences anyway. After summer, of course, comes fall or autumn. And autumn is also categorized or known for its moderate climate. Again, there are several holidays that fall into this particular time, one of those being Chuseok. So that falls into the autumn time frame. So this would also, in my opinion, be a great time to visit because it would be the moderate climate. It wouldn't be too hot or humid, but it would also be some gorgeous scenery because fall is my favorite time of year. I love seeing the leaves change on the trees. And so this would be probably my favorite time, or my preferred time, to visit Korea because it would be such beautiful scenery with the colors of the leaves changing and everything. And then finally, there is winter, which, as we said, runs from December to March. Winter in Korea is cold. It is cold. I've also heard it's very dry, which seems kind of funny to me that summer is so hot and humid, but winter is so cold and dry. The average temperature in Korea during winter is -10 Celsius. So if you, like me, are an American and don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, I looked it up. It is an average temperature of 14 degrees Fahrenheit. That is so cold. I can't imagine functioning in that because, like I said, I'm from the South. I'm not used to it being that cold. If it is that cold here, we don't function that well in that. There's also snow in Korea in the winter time. Living where I do, sometimes we get snow, sometimes not. It's typically more in the northern part of the United States, but it does sometimes snow in Korea, but it is usually always very cold. Alright, so I know I've talked a little bit about how the seasons in Korea compare to where I live, the United States, as we've gone along, but I want to go back and hit some other points that I did not get through the earlier part of the video. So spring and fall are very similar here to what I imagine it would be like in Korea as far as the descriptions that I've read online. The moderate climate in spring, the blooming plants. If you're like me and you have allergies, you know all about the wonderful pollen that comes in the springtime with all of the plants blooming and the flowers. Cherry blossoms are not a thing here as much in the South. We have them, but they're not quite as common as I feel like they are in Korea. So that doesn't quite compare. I don't know that we have as many, say, festivals or things like that that happen in the spring. Most of our events, like in my area, my neck of the woods, it's more the county fair or the state fair, and those typically happen in the fall as opposed to the spring. So I feel like that's a big difference too, is we don't really have the same festivals or events in the springtime like there would be in Korea. As far as summer, it is still hot here. It's very hot and humid, as I talked about earlier. We don't necessarily have a monsoon season. We typically see more pop-up thunderstorms. So it's not uncommon here in the summertime for it to be sunny and hot and pleasant, and then suddenly it becomes massively muggy, massively humid, and for a thunderstorm to pop up. The thunderstorm will pop up, it'll storm, it'll run its course, and then it's gone, and the sun will come out and it will be hot and humid and muggy again. That is not an uncommon thing here in the summer. So I see that as a big difference compared to the monsoon season in Korea, where it's a lot of rain, as opposed to what we have, where it might still be a lot of rain, but it's more broken up into just scattered showers. And then finally, our winter is a little more moderate than what I've read about seasons in Korea. Korean winters, as I've said, are very cold. The average temperature being around 14 degrees Fahrenheit or -10 Celsius. Typically here, we are more moderate climate. It's still cold, but it might be in the 30s or 40s Fahrenheit, of course. And then we typically see colder temperatures come in more so in January to March. Usually if we get any snow or any kind of cold weather events like that, those typically come later in the year, or the first part of the year for us, the later part of winter. So typically that's more a January to March kind of thing. And we might have some cold days, but they're usually not as cold. So it might get it down into the teens in Fahrenheit and at night, but usually we stay pretty much warmer. So that is probably the biggest difference. That is everything. That would be the 4 seasons in Korean. We talked a little bit about what those seasons are called in Korean, about what they look like, when they happen, and then of course how they compare to where I live in the United States. So hope you enjoyed the video. Again, I'm going to link where I got my information from in the description, so check those websites out if you want to learn more. Comment with any questions you might have. I'll be happy to help if I can, or if I don't know the answer, I'll help you look. I like researching, so we can find that out together. We'll learn together. So hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!